Hello everybody and welcome to Wesley's Plant World with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I have a video for you all about my beautiful plant that I have next to me here. This is my beautiful Epipremnum pinnatum, and I've had this plant a few years now and it's been doing so well for me, so I just want to do a video telling you a few informations about the plant and also some care tips, because I'm going to be doing a few different things with this plant in different videos that are coming up. So in this video I just want to concentrate on the actual plant itself. So this plant is in the Araceae family and it originates from the Asian area, many different countries, many different environments, all the way from Bangladesh to the middle of Asia down to Australia and so forth. And it's even actually been found on the Caribbean islands and many other places around the world. So it's quite a diverse and dispersed plant, we can say. And now it's become a loved plant as a house plant in our homes, and it does very well as a house plant. So the first thing about this plant is that it absolutely loves bright indirect light if you want to get the plant to grow quick and full and also grow out lovely leaves. So bright indirect is the key word. This plant won't cope with bright direct light. You will burn out the leaves, it will get brown patches, the leaves will yellow off and so forth. It will be too intense behind glass, especially in the southern exposure or anything like that. So just think bright indirect light and you will be making your plant very happy, but it could cope with some direct light during the morning hours as well. So when it comes to watering this plant, it's also a very easy and non-fussy plant. Basically, water your plant through, let it dry out, and then water it again. The one thing you must never do is let this plant sit in water and have soil that's too bogged down in water, because you will get root rot very quickly. My plant is in a very big pot for the size of the root ball, and my pot actually has no drainage holes, so I water my plant maybe a litre and then I leave it until it's nearly completely dried out, and then I'll water it again, and this plant has been doing absolutely fine with that. But most definitely you should never have a plant like this in a pot without drainage holes if you want to keep it happy, because if you do overwater, then you have created a situation where it will be impossible to get that water out of the soil in time to stop root rot. I've been lucky by putting this plant in my cachet pot and filling it with soil that I did years ago and left the plant like that. It's done fabulously for me, but it's not a good idea. So make sure you've always got drainage holes, let the soil almost dry out and then water again. Now this plant doesn't need that much fertilizer, so don't go over fertilizing this plant. It does very well with minimal fertilizing and it will still grow out mature leaves with time. But when you do fertilize this plant, you can use a liquid organic fertilizer or some kind of balanced liquid fertilizer would be good for this plant, and then you can maybe fertilize it once a month while it's growing out. So growing out, that can happen all year round in a home environment, because with different light, humidity, temperature and so many other aspects, your plant will grow out in different times, so there won't be a specific season when it starts growing out. But when you see your plant is slowing down with its growth, then don't fertilize it, and when you see it starting to push out more leaves and vines, then you can fertilize your plants, but definitely don't overdo the fertilizing. So when it comes to soil for this plant, it is an aroid, and that means it likes an aerating soil. So the best kind of thing for this plant would be a kind of chunky mixture. So what you could use are all sorts of things that you mix together yourself to make a good soil. For example, you can use orchid bark or shredded bark, cocoa coir, cocoa chips, perlite, vermiculite, sand, pumice, horticultural charcoal, which is biochar, and you can also mix in a potting mix if you wish, some kind of peat moss. You can also use sphagnum moss. There are many different things you can make and mix together to make a nice light airy soil to keep around the roots. It's not a good idea to just go and buy a potting mix and then plant this plant straight into that, because it will be too compact, it will hold water too long, and it will create root rot and a lack of oxygen around the roots. So when it comes to repotting the plant, you can repot your plant when it's outgrown the pot that it's in. So when you see it's getting root bound, then you can pot it up into a slightly larger pot, maybe 2 to 4 inches bigger, but never way too big. The best kind of humidity for this plant is around 50% in your home. This plant does tolerate normal home humidity, but around 50% will make this plant very, very happy. So you can have yourself a humidifier, but it's not necessary in a normal house. But during the winter, be careful that your plant doesn't dry out too much with the dry air. Then you need to create some kind of humidity. You can have containers around the plant with water that evaporate air, pebble tray underneath the plant, for example. You can spray your plant over, do different things to help keep the humidity up, but around 50% is perfect for this plant. So the best temperatures to keep this plant in are between 16 and 27 degrees Celsius. That's between 60 and 81 degrees Fahrenheit. If this plant gets too cold, it will not cope with that, and if you get it down to anywhere near freezing, your plant will die straight away. It can't cope with that. It is a tropical loving plant. So common problems with this plant, well, the first one would be overwatering. If you overwater the plant, it's very sensitive to that. It will rot out, as I just said before. Other problems are that this plant can get different types of pests on it, and I've had a huge thrips problem on this plant, and they've nibbled out channels and marks all over the leaves on this plant that have created browning patches and so forth. My plant doesn't have thrips anymore, but it had thrips for a very long time when I had a thrips problem with a lot of my plants in my indoor terrace garden. This plant has been isolated on its own in another room away from other plants, and it has no thrips now, but that can be a huge problem, and they really do cause a lot of damage on the leaves. They suck out the sap of the plant and they can cause all sorts of infections in the plant. So you really need to get rid of these kind of pests as quick as possible. You can use a horticultural soap, you can use neem oil, you can wipe the leaves off, and you can go and shower your plant off as often as you feel is necessary, because it's also good to keep the leaves clear of dust and debris as well, so that the plant can photosynthesize as good as possible. So when it comes to propagation, there are so many different things you can do with this plant, and it's very easy to propagate. You can do water propagations, you can do soil propagations, you can air layer on the vines, and you can do hydroponic propagations. And that is one of the things I'm going to be doing in a future video, because I am going to be deconstructing this plant and putting it in passive hydroponics so that I can grow out some new roots to then be able to put this plant into semi-hydroponics. So look out for those videos when they come up. Another thing that I'm going to be doing is, you can see this plant, I have it on this Coco Coir stake, and it's been doing very well on that, and I've actually been winding the vine up and down. So some points have got these mature leaves, as you can see on the top, and some areas have the immature leaves at the bottom. And I don't know where on the vines this is happening, but I'm going to be unraveling all this and taking out the mature pieces so that I can put them into my new pot, and I'll put the immature pieces into another pot. So this is all going to be exciting to deconstruct and do things with, and I'm going to take you along for the whole journey. Another thing that I'm going to be doing is I am going to be creating my own homemade Leca ball pole, so that my plant can grow up and carry on growing out these mature leaves. And as you can see here, I have an arrangement of different leaves, and they do get the most beautiful mature leaves. And you can see with these lobes on the sides of the stems, they are growing out really, really well. And every time a mature leaf comes out, they get bigger and longer. And well, I want this to carry on. So I'm going to have my stake around about 1.5 to 2 meters tall. So look out for that video where I create that Leca ball stake as well. So I just want to give you a quick closer look at this plant up and down so you can see how gorgeous these leaves are. So have a look here. You can see how wonderful my plant is. You can see the immature leaves are these lovely long kind of oval leaves, and they have no lobes in them whatsoever. So you can see the immature leaves. Some are large, some are small. And then we get the more mature leaves with the lobes in them in different sizes and different shapes, different forms. They're so fantastic. This plant transforms from a completely different looking plant when it's immature to when it's mature. And when I actually bought this plant, it was a small immature plant and it just grew out so fast, and I decided to put it onto this stake, and then after that it just grew out these mature leaves, as I said, within just a couple of years. So this transformation goes really quickly if the plant is happy as well. So enjoy the whole process of buying yourself a smaller plant and then watching it transform like this, because it really is so amazing to behold. So that's all I have for you for this video. I really hope you enjoyed having a closer look at my plant and learning a few more things about this plant. And I am really looking forward to seeing you in my future videos where I do all the different things that I'm going to be doing with this plant. So until then, please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up. And I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.